Hi guys. Um, it's really nice to see everyone here tonight. So my name is Joey. I'm the producer of Ayahku, Dr. G. It's a short documentary about a man called Dr. Ganja, which you will catch in a bit. Tonight with us we have Hidayah, Hisham, Kimi Del Prado, and Kiri Chopaka. I'm gonna do a quick introduction again after the session, but just to give everyone a quick introduction. Hidayah Hisham, she's the director of Ayahku Dr. G. And also Kiri, she is the CEO of Elevated Estate, and she is an independent cannabis legalization advocate. And she's from Thailand. Kimi Del Prado, she is the chairperson of Sensible Philippines and the vice president and third nominee for the Medical Cannabis Party in the Philippines. Welcome to our session tonight, guys, and we're so thankful to have you all here. Tonight we are going to be watching the film first, and we are going to have a panel discussion following after. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type it in and send it to us or any of our panelists. If you have any follow-up questions as well, you can put it in the chat and we'll try to get to them at the end of our session. But yeah, tonight it will be a all-girls night. It's gonna be fun. We're hoping to get a lot of female chit-chat and perspective into this topic of cannabis and harm reduction as well. So I hope, everyone's looking forward to the session later. I and myself, this will be the final event for the Ayahku Dr. G team here in Malaysia. Without further ado, I guess we can start the film and we'll check back with you guys in a bit.
Hello?
Assalamualaikum.
Yes. Did you say hi?
I'm trying my best to survive. It's something like what kalau burung tu kalau duduk dalam sangkar, burung tak tahu nak cakap apa, tapi burung itu dengan mengharapkan tuannya akan lepaskan dia lah. I'm only talking to the cage. Cakap dengan Allah, cakap dengan dinding.
Wah, patut dia boleh lepas tadi. Tak tahulah.
Tak ada. I'm okay. Don't worry lah, saya tak ada masalah lah. So my daughter, you must be strong for me. Don't worry, I'll be strong. Okay, don't follow me. Jangan ikut rentak saya.
Orang ni kuat sampai 80 je ni.
So you have to be more stronger. Okay?
Okay.
Seorang pesara tentera berpangkat kapten dihadapkan ke Mahkamah Kelang atas 36 pertuduhan berkaitan dadah.
Amiruddin yang dikenali sebagai Dr. Ganja juga mengaku tidak bersalah terhadap 18 pertuduhan menanam pokok disyaki ganja di rumahnya. Pendakwaan dikemukakan mengikut Akta Dadah Berbahaya 1952.
Bila isteri kita tangkap tu, serabut tau. Kita tak pernah ada pengalaman, tak tahu nak buat apa. Memang Siti down sangat-sangat. Nak makan pun tak banyak makan, nak tidur pun tak banyak tidur. Memang rasa dunia ni gelap. Dah 4 hari raya, dah 4 puasa dah. Kami adik-beradik tanpa daddy dengan kita orang. Bagi Siti benda ni terlampau lama untuk ayah Siti nak dibicarakan. Siti macam rasa sangat ayah Siti macam teraniaya sebab tekanan tau. Kita tak tahu kehidupan dia macam mana kat situ. After retired lah, ayah saya dapat 3 penyakit serangkai tu. Kencing manis, darah tinggi, jantung. Daripada asal dia seorang yang tak boleh duduk diam, sangat aktif, sangat kuat bekerja. Sampai orang panggil dia banyak hidup lah sebab dia macam memang tak sihat. Daripada dia pergi hospital tu dengan keadaan buah pinggang dia yang okey, sihat. Sehingga ayah saya punya buah pinggang dah rosak. Kesan-kesan, majoriti kesan daripada ubat-ubatan lah. And then doktor kena pasti ada tumor pula dekat spinal cord dia. Bila benda tu berturut-turut, ayah saya makin down. Siti tak ada siapa-siapa. Masa usia muda, Siti dah hilang mak. Tuhan dah tarik nikmat. Siti tak dapat rasa macam orang lain. Siti keluarga tak besar. Adik-beradik kita orang 3 orang je. Ayah Siti ni, dia memang asal tentera daripada pangkat bawah. And then dia sampai target dia. Dia nak jadi pegawai. And then dia memang tak pernah ada rekod jenayah. Ayah Siti sangat-sangat berdisiplin. Dengan anak pun sangat tegas. Makin lama makin tengok, macam nampak dia makin better, getting better. Sampai saya cakap dia makan ubat tak dan sebagainya. And then dia kata, dia tak makan ubat hospital lah. Dia ambil satu benda ni, dek, dia kata. So macam saya, macam mana dia tak makan ubat? And then dia cakap, adik jangan salah faham. Cuba adik baca. Daripada situ Siti start baca, rujuk orang dan sebagainya. And then ada rujuk juga dengan beberapa ustaz. Diorang cakap benda ni tak haram. Selagi kita tak salah gunakan, tak salah pun. Lepas tu ada setengah orang, dia akan lebih prefer untuk rawatan alternatif macam guna herba-herba, rawatan kampung dan sebagainya. Bergantung kepada individu tu.
Right. So, to make this work, the body must have good eating, good sleep, good urine, good both. This must be good.
Cuma silap ayah Siti adalah dia seorang yang sangat outspoken. Bila dia terlampau berani untuk bersuara, dia tak sedar ada orang-orang di luar sana yang tak selesa. Buruk macam mana dia, macam mana pun dia adalah ayah Siti. Dia adalah harta Siti dunia akhirat. Selagi aku boleh buat yang the best untuk ayahku, aku akan buat.
I must win this case. I must.
Amin.
Inshallah, I must win the case. I must win. It's all now in the hand of Ramkarpal.
So kita doa kena positif je. Sekarang memang kena sabar.
Yeah, but I want to go out because I want to take care of you and all my children and my children. I'm too old already. I'm 3 years doing what at the prison. I also don't know.
Okey, dia.
Okay, anything I pray for you. You are my best daughter. Okay, you must be strong. Alright?
Okey, dia.
I love you, Dad. You take care.
Okey, insyaAllah.
Jaga diri.
Ya, hari ini kita nak sambung dengan gawai rampasan. Yang hari itu dia bagi keterangan.
If a person is convicted for a 39B offence, the judge has no choice but to sentence him to death. And I don't think many judges like to do that. But the judge's hands are tied because he can only impose one penalty, which is the death penalty. In Amiruddin's case, he has a valid defense as far as I'm concerned. But of course his case is quite unique. 39B is a section in the Dangerous Drugs Act which provides for the death penalty in cases of trafficking of dangerous drugs. So you have various kinds of drugs, heroin, cannabis, and so on and so forth. My main concern with the death penalty is and has always been that it's not doing its job as it should be. It's not effective. You cannot disregard those who are pro-death penalty. But in any drug case, a person sells a drug to another. So whoever who buys that drug does so voluntarily. So in those circumstances, I can't see why the seller or his life should be taken away. I'm not saying he should not be punished, but not taking his life away, certainly not. It's not easy for a family to sit out the entire trial. Sometimes trials can go on for years, and it's not unusual for that to happen. So that in itself can be quite traumatizing, and everyone would feel it.
Satu benda yang Siti rasa sebenarnya berat lah. Telinga Siti ni asak-asak 39B. Gantung sampai mati. Itu yang dia ulang kat telinga Siti. Siti cuma harap benda ni diselesaikan dengan segera, dapat selesai, dapat bebas lah. Takkan lagi tangguh dan sebagainya. And then kita orang punya family dapat together balik macam dululah. Hari berlaku tangkapan tu lah, Siti macam minta maaf, dia cuma macam redha. Dia cakap, siapa nak tolong? Kita orang tak ada duit. Macam mana anak dia nak cari lawyer? Siapa nak bela dia?
So, we have human rights. Because why? You can't stop me from taking the medicine that I should take for myself. Nobody can have the right to say anything about it.
Memang Siti sangat struggle. Sampai Siti pernah berdoa, Siti cakap, Ya Allah, kalau memang tak ada jalan keluar untuk masalah ni, Siti macam rela Tuhan tu ambil nyawa Siti. Sebab tak sanggup nak tengok dia macam terseksa. Saya tak tahu macam mana keadaan dia.
Hello?
Jadi ni.
Jadi?
Saya dah telefon lama sebab banyak problem. Shutdown lah, apalah macam-macam. Tapi untuk maklumat, cakap dengan hospital saya tidak mau buat operation. Kerana apa? Saya mental stress. Saya tak boleh.
Tapi sekejap. Tapi orang cakap dengan
tak apa. I am going a major operation. I can get paralyzed, I can die. But if I don't want to take the risk, lagi satu, ini perjuangan saya. I tell you, I promise you, I'm okay. I can run, you know. I'm only waiting the time to come out. Because Allah helped me already. Allah is helping me a lot. I'm doing exercise in the prison now. I'm just moving very hard now to build myself. Please believe me, I'm not an old, stupid wheelchair man. I'm a strong soldier. So I can make it.
Tak apa, insyaAllah. So, Daddy jangan stres-stres.
They're stopping me to talk now. I'll catch up with you. Thanks for telling me. I love you all.
Daddy
I want to go back.
Daddy
so
jaga,
you take care.
Daddy jaga diri.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Benda ni semua banyak ajar Siti lah. Bila Siti dah lalu fasa macam ni, kekuatan Siti ayah Siti je. Siti bertahan untuk ayah, untuk daddy Siti. Kalau Siti tak kuat, macam mana daddy nak kuat? Apa-apa yang kita nak buat atas kehendak kita. Kita kena usaha untuk buat. Siapa kita yang tentukan. So, Siti punya niat, selagi Siti mampu, Siti memang nak berbakti. And Siti nak dia bebas.
Hi guys, welcome back again. So that was our short film Ayahku Dr. G, or My Father Dr. G in English. And tonight we have with us three very special panelists. The first one is Hidayah Hisham, the director of Ayahku Dr. G herself. Kitty Chopaka, CEO of Elevated Estate and an independent cannabis legalization advocate. We also have Kimi Del Prado, chairperson of Sensible Philippines and the vice president and third nominee for the Medical Cannabis Party in the Philippines. So welcome to tonight's session, you guys. Just first off, I was wondering, since it's Kimi and Kitty's first time watching our film, how was it like? First off, impressions.
It was very heavy. Let me go ahead while the the emotions are fresh and raw. So yeah, I mean, just the intro enough, I'm getting teary-eyed again. So just the intro enough is very heavy, and we know that that situation is common among especially in Southeast Asia, with the war on drugs and everything. I told you it was heavy. So yeah, it's you got all the emotions, and it's the voices that we need to hear, stories that we need to put out there. And Hidayah, thank you so much for that film. Sorry, yeah, emotional.
Yeah, no, before you went into that.
What about you, Kitty? How did you feel about the film as well?
I think I went the other direction, like the sad, you get angry, and then you're kind of like, and I'm confused and perplexed. But I understand as to like that's a norm. It used to be a norm here. Thank goodness that it's kind of moving the other way. As much as I complain about our policies and whatnot here, it's still, at least we're moving in the right direction. But at the same time, it's kind of like seeing that it's quite silly. I don't know how to. I don't know the emotion that I should place on there. There's like the anger, and then the like.
Yeah, it's a complex.
I give up. I give up.
It's a bag of emotions.
Yeah, and it's like she doesn't need to feel any of this. Like, no one needs to, be feeling any of this, because it doesn't make sense as to why it's happening.
Yeah, let's put the spotlight at Hidayah then. Like, how do you feel as the director of this film then, from us getting the grant, and from the moment where we knew nothing about cannabis to where we are at now? Even our end credit has changed, with the UN reclassifying cannabis as a less dangerous drug now. It's been a 2-year journey. How has that been for you, and what have you taken away from that process?
It's a loaded question, because it was 2 years of following Dr. G and his family, especially we were with Siti, his doctor, the whole time. So we had front row seats to what she was experiencing, and it was that, like, I think in that 2-year journey, it's what Kimi feels, it's what Kitty feels, it's anger, it's sadness, and some days I get it, and like this is such a silly thing to go through, in the sense that like her pain is unnecessary, her loss is unnecessary, and all of these difficult emotions and the trauma that comes from seeing losing a loved one, it's all induced by the state, and in Malaysia it's a very patriarchal state, and they're taking away father figures. That someone pointed that out to me, and I thought, like, yeah, it's ironic that we punish fathers, take them away, and it causes this ripple effect of socioeconomic instability among like very vulnerable communities. But sorry, before I get into that, yes, it's been a loaded experience. And what is the main takeaway? For me, it's taught me to be more thoughtful and considerate about the stories that go behind headlines, especially with, I think, because all you see in the news are statistics, right? Dr. G is one of the many people who are, being punished with no charges has been sentenced yet, but he is facing the mandatory death penalty, where the judge has no other choice but to give him the the death penalty. So in the sense that, you know, the judge's hands are tied, so they can't give any other decisions other than death. But there is hope. So, you know, you see the statistics, you see the number, you see the amount of like drugs they carry, but you don't see the person, you don't see the family behind them. So, you know, not just regarding drug policies, but even to the prison population, I've discovered a whole new perspective for them. Not so much sympathy, but just this strong human feeling of like, you don't deserve to be there, because prisons are also not the great environment to actually learn from your mistakes. It actually worsens and deepens your trauma as well. So that's my takeaway and my very long-winded response. Did I answer the question? Yes.
Yeah, you did. And well, we're gonna move on to Kitty. Obviously, for our audience out there, if you don't already know, Kitty is based in Thailand and Kimi is based in the Philippines, and Hidayah and I were based in Malaysia. But obviously, us being in the Southeast Asian region, we share a lot of things. But one thing's for sure, in Thailand, it's definitely like, you know, we look up to Thailand, and everything seems very glossy on the outside. But, you know, Kitty, as the person who's living and advocating on the grounds over there, how is it actually like, and how is it like behind the glitz and glam of, like, you know, Thailand being the first country in Southeast Asia and in you know, to legalize weed?
It's just as you said, it's glossy on the outside, but like it's quite complex, and, you know, pile-ups of cultural trauma, systematic problem, corruption, all of the above that we are quite used to. But yeah, it's never what the news would report about. We still have people getting caught for growing a couple of plants, even though people outside of Thailand thinks that, oh, you are now allowed to grow 6 plants in your backyard. It's like, no, the other day I just saw news of someone 3 plants, or 2 plants, or kids who were, because they legalized cannabis, but unfortunately they didn't make access a thing. So what happened is the black market is booming like crazy. The amount the amount of seized cannabis has been increased, and kids now, another way of making money apart from crypto is also grow weed. No one talks about that. They talk about how we are becoming like gonna be the hub or whatever it is for medical cannabis, for Southeast Asia and for Asia, and we're gonna export things, and, you know, all of those things that I believe that all your politicians say every time before there's a vote, and they will, you know, they're trying to catch on something and they didn't realize. I think this guy was quite lucky because they didn't realize that there is actually a big following and the amount of people that actually do believe in cannabis that gave him the votes. And now they are out for blood, wanting all those policies delivered. Unfortunately, the deliveries is not there. There's usually just, you know, photos of things being delivered, but in terms of practice, it's just not carried out. That can also be reflected in the drug policy index that we got, you know, to get ranked out of 30 different countries. We ranked 24, yay, with a 36 out of 100 scores, below Ghana. And we considered ourselves quite a developing country, or moving closer towards developed, which I don't agree with. But that's not just cannabis itself, though. Thailand, and I do believe, like a lot of our region has the same underlying problem with system, with corruption, with nepotism, with, you know, all of the above. And cannabis is just one of those three holy trinity, as I said earlier, that, drugs, sex, and gambling, those three things is like the oldest trade. And it's also things that are illegal because of moral reasons, even though it's still there. No matter where you go, you will find those three. And it can always be found. So I think it is time that we, like, even though we seem like we're the forefront, we still have a lot to do, because we still have that problem with morals. And until we realize that people have the right to, get high, and that it's their body, and it's adult, and it's healthier than whatever we have access to right now, and you can make money out of it. Oh my God. They will eventually get there, but until they pass their morals, they won't see anything else. Maybe except for money. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of what Thailand is now. So whatever you see in the news, just lower that down like a good 60%, and then you'll go and read between the lines, and you'll see the truth. I'm like being a cannabis QAnon right now.
But I mean, that's one thing as well. The three of you did not sign up to be activists. You inadvertently became activists through your process, and I was really curious about Kimi's process, especially. I know that you're a mom, Kimi, and a big part of that came into the picture when you try to defend recreational cannabis, which often gets misconstrued a lot in communities. So how was your process from being a casual consumer or user or advocate to being where you're at now?
Okay, thank you. That's actually really interesting, because a lot of my stories aren't really meant for public consumption yet, but because of the you know why. But my journey started out really as an interest. When we were young, and we do a lot of stuff, we experiment on stuff. And then when I became a mom, I kind of wondered if there's anything mom and marijuana related, and I found this that there's this group called Moms for Marijuana International, and that's how I started. It started as me. I was new to Facebook back then. It wasn't my intention to use it seriously, give out your full name and whatnot. But then eventually I found myself in the middle of all this because it's at the time when Colorado had the story of Charlotte Fiji. That was around the same time that the movement started in the Philippines, because of a similar story that I helped put out there. So I started out seeing advocates. I started out seeing a lot of people. I was naive on social media back then, so I see a lot of people posting their marijuana online, and then so I saw it as an opportunity to here's a patient who could probably benefit from the stash you're showing off. So if you believe in cannabis as you can use it, and this is actually a time for us to hey, you know what? This something that we use is actually a medicine, and a patient is actually looking for it. It didn't happen that way. Of course, it's illegal, but it kind of started. A movement, because I found myself gathering. I became the go-to person of the medical and then the recreational. So the main focus. So Facebook became it's a front for me. It's like social media. I post a lot of things about cannabis because it's just like managing a page, right? I didn't expect that I'd get media interviews, and then all of a sudden I was expected to show up in a lot of a lot of meetings, and I didn't start. It didn't start me thinking in the next 5 years I'll be fronting a movement or like that. It just kind of happened. One thing led to another, and it's just there's a necessity to do that. Here's a plant that other people can live without, and sometimes it's okay not to have it, sometimes it's okay to have it, but to other people, they realize that it's a lifeline to them, and they really wanted to use it. And like I said, it started with the story of if Colorado had Charlotte Fiji story, so we had the story of Moon Jaden. Unfortunately, she died around the time that we started, but it actually gave birth to a movement. It's just sad that we had to have one child die for the movement to for the media to catch up on the story, and then being exposed to patients. We had like deaths every month, every so and so, and yeah. So I found myself like this is serious, and it kind of like I took on this responsibility to be like, hey, someone needs to organize this, or someone needs to be the point person. But I'm not really a leader of some sort. It kind of just me connecting people. I actually have a joke, and thank you, Joey, for mentioning about our humor. I always say that I'm kind of like a Nokia. I connect people because our voice. I mean, if someone like what happened to, I think it's we all have the same the story. As soon as you see someone stepping up, it kind of gives you the courage to like, hey, I want to associate myself to that person or to that group. It kind of gives you that courage and the sense of like community. Like, hey, I'm not alone. I have we have advocates in the Philippines, and it's that. And I realized that the more I speak up, and picking up from the film, it mentioned there that Dr. Ganda's only crime is being too outspoken. So yeah, so that got him into that situation, and me, as well as all the advocates in the Philippines. So us being outspoken, especially at the time of the drug war. I'm sure you've heard of the drug war in the Philippines. So we cannot really just focus on the rights of the patient. Of course, it's important to give access to the patients, but we don't see is what's happening behind, especially when the war on drugs came. I mean, some people would think that it's only the government is only after. It's not true. Cannabis is a drug, and there has been a lot of people arrested for marijuana. So it's just that we need to step up. And I've been in the advocacy since 2014. It's okay to get allies from the government, but we always have to look for allies. And sometimes they use the advocacy as a platform for them to get support, especially in campaign season. And it's what happened at the time of the campaign of our current president now. When he was campaigning, he used that as his one of his like selling point. Like he will not deprive the Filipino people of the benefits of medical marijuana. And then he went into power. His administration, and then he launched this was, and then all of a sudden it's like us advocates are like, what's gonna happen to us? I mean, it's just that we are not safe. But then, like I said, we've been trying to get allies, and also using the angle of prioritizing the rights of patients. We've been doing that, and then the war on drugs came, and then after a series of consultations and meetings with fellow advocates, we decided, hey, why don't we try to run? We form a political party and run as a party next election. Instead of looking for allies, why don't we just step in and represent ourselves as a center? So that's the thing. Yeah, so it's just like what Kitty said, and I just found myself in the middle of this, and look at me in this platform with all of you guys, with shared sentiments, shared frustrations, and everything. And yeah, I actually have a joke again that I tell in the advocacy. I always tell them that getting involved in the advocacy is like, pardon me for if it's a stupid joke. I said this is kind of like Hotel California. You can check out. the minute you speak up about this, you'll be like, because when I first came out on me, I was like, oh, and then I realized, oh, okay, hey, what did I do? I just went out in public advocating weed, and me to step. Because
Oh, we lost Jimmy for a bit.
even if I stop, or I could be a meme in the future, so might as well contribute to the, and that's what I'm still doing right now.
No, we're really thankful for all that you do, Kimmy, and for the for your community back in the Philippines. But Kitty, you're known as a ganjapreneur, and also like despite what you mentioned a while ago about Thailand being less than less glossy than it seems. How is it like with Elevated, with your company and also your advocacy? How have you brought your personal relationship at home? Like I know that you're a lawyer. How have you used that experience as well? And how did you transform from being a lawyer into a ganjapreneur? And also an advocate.
No, I was not a lawyer. I ran the law firm, but it equates to doing a lot of paralegal stuff. So my off days, I used to read the law for fun. I still happen to do that now, but it's more targeted, very drug related. All the narcotics code, psychoactives, and law anywhere that is written in English. I would just randomly go through them just for the fun of it and see like what's the rules are. But in terms of startups and especially Elevator Estate itself, we're quite really kind of in a bit more of a hiatus because our main focus is actually events, and I haven't been able to do events because of COVID. And I can't translate what we do online. I try that. It's impossible because cannabis is quite a thing, and you need to constantly be looking at the person that you're talking to see all their minor expressions and whatnot to see whether they understand where you're talking to, because there's kind of, until they get understanding of one part, you can't really go to the next part. They need to have that mind blown moment, like randomly, like every now and again, and especially with business. So I'm more on the consulting side right now. I do a lot of R&D work in terms of coming up with random menus, making sure that certain ingredients kind of work, how to source that, and in terms of kind of more in that space where it's the end user product. So to tell you the truth, in terms of business wise, a lot of my things is kind of cannabis related, but not really cannabis touching at all. I have my own gummies, but like those are terpenes, and it's not even cannabis derived. So technically I can send it to you guys legally, because it has FDA approved on our end already, because it's not cannabis related. It's cannabis related, but it's not cannabis, you see. And it will give you kind of almost the same initial feel of what OG Kush would feel. And because it's terpenes, it can also help you open up your cannabinoid receptors. So like it's kind of weird that something like that is quite legal. But this is also another point that I would usually make to a lot of businesses that wants to get into this space. You need to have IP. You need to have something that is quite your own, or a process, or the process of operation. That's kind of where the money making is. You don't always have to be touching cannabis, because if you're touching cannabis, you're only like fighting for that little bubble. The industry is massive, and you guys are fighting to grow it. It's like, that also doesn't really make sense, especially with if we put the globe into perspective, where right now in the US, cannabis is a lot cheaper than what we have access to now here in Thailand legally. So that also doesn't make sense. But don't be discouraged, because when there's a problem, there's usually is a solution that can be turned into a business. So right now there's a lot of problems, which means that it's prime and it's ready to be, jumped into. But it takes a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing, as well as a lot of understanding, not just the space, but also what cannabis is, what the trend is looking at, how policy is shaping, so that you can make the right prediction of where to kind of really focus your business to, as well as having the ability to just randomly change because of policy. So you need to be quite agile. And that's kind of the playing field that we're playing right now, which is, I don't think it's any different from crypto, or like, the initial bit, the .com era, or like all those big startups. It's a new industry, and we have yet to even put in the pillars. Like, we're digging right now. So like, until we put in the pillars, and you got to understand that with putting in those pillars, it's not just the private sector that's going to have to put it in. The government also have to play their part, as well as the public, because without the consumer knowing or understanding what the hell it is that we're all trying to sell, which is cannabis, then how will they buy it? Like, it takes a long time to, get educated in it. One thing that I do say, that I'm not quite jealous of what you guys are going through, is that you guys have the time right now, until when it becomes some sort of a legalized, to educate and really, like, get all of this that we know, and just kind of shove it in their brain, and like, force feed them. But it takes time, and you can only do it like, bits at a time. And then you have to keep it interesting and change it with other stuff. So that's the thing. Like, you really need to do a lot of I find a lot of background work of just randomly inseminating information, and by having that a lot longer than we did before legalization, I think that would help out grow the actual public better, because with an accepting public, everything else will kind of slowly fall into place, because the public, at the end of the day, they have most power. If they band together, they can force the government to do stuff. They can also force company to do stuff. They can cancel stuff. But yeah, our playing field is quite not that great. The only people who's are actually making money out of this is those who invest in stocks of company that stated that they were doing something hemp related.
Yeah, it looks like the Wild West right now with things, and we have to employ creative solutions. But speaking about creative solutions as well, I know that one of the challenges in the film is that we are not able to see Siti's face. And I was wondering, Hidayah, maybe you can talk to us about that. Why could we not see the face, and what creative solutions have you sort of used in producing this film while the case is still ongoing as well?
Yeah, well, I think, creative solutions come from limited resources. So, one of the many challenges, Joe, me, and Dom had to face was we had to make a film in less than 6 months. And we had about I think we had hours of footage. And then a lot of it was these personal, intimate, close-up shots of, Siti, because we really wanted everyone, the audience, to feel that personal intimacy. How close you can be to grief, and how close you can be to, separation from your loved one as well. But halfway through, as you know, Malaysia, just like the rest of Asia, they carry such a heavy stigma against people who are, related to drug cases. So, with Siti being the daughter of Dr. G, and it was a well-known case in Malaysia. Everyone who I think most people in Malaysia, when you mention the word Dr. G, they have like two different people, but one that comes to mind is Amiruddin Abdullah, which is our character. And as much as there's pity for him, there's still a lot of the stigma of like, oh, but I know that he used it for medicine, but at the same time, like cannabis is illegal. So you're, so there's that shame as well of like discriminating the family members who are also related. So she was facing that halfway through. She faced some threats. So we had to, go back to the editing board, the storyboard, and like take down all those close-up shots and try to. But what happened when we took down those close-up shots and we blurred her, we realized that it was also that closeness is gone now. So what we did was we put in more bites of her narration talking about her experience. So it's become this really, just from removing the face, it still feels you still feel close to her because of the vulnerability that she's willing to share with us. And that's really been her purpose on joining the film. She was never really about, let's talk about the benefits of hemp or cannabis. That is important as well, but you cannot address, you cannot move on and make grand economy based on hemp, where in the past, there's still family members and there's still prisoners who are being punished for the same plant. So that was her intention with the story as well. So we both collaborated in that front as to how we could, evoke more of these emotions and put her experience at the very front of it, rather than talking about cannabis, which I think everyone knows. Everyone can find a paper that it is a beautiful, plant that medicates and heals, and it's silly that people are not getting the correct access to it as well. My father being one of them, who suffers from cancer. So, So I think the creative solution was to just get closer to her in terms of the narration, and that's helped, created this intimate feeling. Yeah.
Well, now I know everyone kind of got into the cause for very different reasons, but the threat remains very real for all of us, no matter where you are, in Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia, and especially in the Philippines with the war on drugs, Kimi. Like, we want to know how punitive the drug policies are in the Philippines and how is it actually affecting advocates in the Philippines right now.
Okay, as to how punitive, I think we share I think we all take pride in belonging to a region where we have the most punitive approach to the drug war. Of course, I'm sarcastic. But yeah, it like what you said in the campaign of Dr. There is no distinction between and recreational. So with that, it's really tricky, because it's like we are branding people just from mere possession as criminals, and you're going to put them in prison together with people who kill, with people who have violent crimes, and it just doesn't make sense because it takes up prison space, and people who have been arrested has become just statistics of the government saying, oh, this is the success rate of our war on drugs. Look at the people we have incarcerated. Just numbers, right? So it's a make or break for us advocates. It's either that should stop you, that should prevent you from coming out, or it should make you more assertive, in the sense that because as we go along, we have friends outside our circle and then eventually from within our circle. So no one is safe actually from escaping the law, especially the drug law. So how do we address that? It's really, as what Kitty said, it's education. And most often than not, every time there's an arrest, it's always intimidation. And if you don't know the law, they're going to use that against you. So just giving people the right information, like how to, what and what not to do in terms of arrest. And you have to really, because like I said, it's really intimidation. First and foremost, it's that approach, because a lot of arrests are, they don't have any cannabis with them. but they got intimidated, and then all of a sudden they found themselves, oh, he was found with like a gram of cannabis, and yeah, with no access to lawyers, and no support from, not a lot of support, because like what Joy said, people kind of avoid drug cases because of the because of its complications. So again, it's really important. Education is really important. That's the most important tool that we have.
That's true. And over here for Dr. G, for example, even just like 200 grams, you get served the death penalty. It's atrocious and it's so unjust. And I was just wondering, like, how is it like in Thailand as well? Could you share how is the situation like and how punitive are the laws in Thailand right now as well?
We're live, aren't we? Okay, let's just let's see how far I can go on this. Most times in Thailand, one good thing and bad thing about Thailand is that is corruption. So it's a lot of times it doesn't even get to the station, and that's just kind of how we're quite used to it. You pay them off, it goes away. Or you can choose to go to rehab, which equates to, taking time off work, all of that stuff. Or you can choose to go to court, equates to taking time off work and all that things. And if you can afford it, you end it right where the problem occur. So that's it's sad, but it's true. And it's the norm, which is even sadder. But yeah, it's quite rampant here, and which kind of makes it in a way that there's a lot of disparity for people, because there's also those who can't afford it, and they have to go through all of that. The one thing I found out today, 80% of of the people that's in prison in Thailand right now is from drug cases. 80%. And I'm like, wait, is every other person a dealer? Is there so much selling? But no, it's users. So and also one thing that I realized that out of my 5, how many of years I've been doing this, is I didn't put together that Thailand's most of their policy is written on zero tolerance. So until there's no point. This was actually raised by one of the health ministry people. So it's not like he wasn't for harm reduction, but he was pointing out that because Thailand is like that, and we're kind of based on zero tolerance, and it's a no-sum game. There's supposed to be no drug use or drug abuse here in Thailand, and that's kind of what everyone's aiming towards. And it just doesn't and he goes but harm reduction is the total opposite. That's kind of why we're constantly going around in circles with our policies, because it's not going one way or the other, and it's not in accordance to the culture that we believe that drugs is bad. Okay. And that just seems to be everywhere. That's especially in Asia. It's just, I believe that because of drugs stop you from working and being another cog in the wheel, especially here, it just makes you bad because you're not working. And that's just kind of how people view drug as a problem. And it means that you're not contributing. Yeah. Policies here, quite bad. We also send them to prison, but only the poor and who can't afford to deal with it the way that it's dealt with. And that's the sad truth.
Yeah, and to add on to it, I mean, statistics here in Malaysia, a large population of cannabis-related crimes are also committed by women, especially, and that's so iconic because everyone here tonight, we're women, right? And it's, you know, and in the film as well, we see Siti being a caretaker, and you know, even cannabis aside, I think society often expect women to be the caretakers, and but at the same time, they're not really listening as well. I feel like, you know. So, do you think there are any personal challenges you think that's related to you being a woman in this field, and this cause? But at the same time, it's also there's a strength in being, you know, a woman in this like largely mansplaining kind of scene, you know. So yeah, I was wondering, Kimi, Kiri, Hidayah, if you guys have anything, could you chip in on that?
You go first, Kimmy.
All right. We talked about this when we first talked, and I said that it's funny how it was men who thought of prohibition as like 100% responsible for the laws that we have right now, and then here we are, women. Because, like I said, what really sparked the movement in the Philippines is what happened in Colorado, and we had mothers fighting for access for their children to use medical cannabis back then, and it kind of happened in the Philippines as well. So my kids, by the way, my kids are fine. It just so happened that I found myself in the company of people wanting to know more about cannabis, because these are people who believed in their entire lives that cannabis is a drug, and anyone who uses drugs should be imprisoned because it's immoral, it's illegal, therefore they're criminals and therefore should be in jail. And then all of a sudden they found hope in a drug that they thought was like, wait a minute, we were told to stay away from that, and all of a sudden that's what we need for our sick children. So it's kind of like that. We have to give it to them for their strength and courage to really unlearn the years of lies that they believed in. So again, it's a make or break, and the more we women, the more we step up, it kind of gives the other it kind of gives this feeling that it's safe to come out as well, because these are women, and I mean, we are women and mothers as well, and yeah, so it kind of, we're kind of like the plant as a female plant. We're kind of like correcting the mistakes of what these men did, 60, 70 years of prohibition. And then and I also want to say that aside from prohibition, we in Southeast Asia, we're known to use plant medicines, right? And then then the prohibition came. We were told what to use and what not to use. So, and then here they come again to change the laws again, telling us again how to use the plant that they told us not to use in the first place. So, yeah, so pretty much it's us bringing back our culture, right? And us in Southeast Asia, we're an agricultural region, and we're not even taking advantage of that so much. And the discussion always revolves around, especially in the Philippines, is just, should we legalize it for to give access to patients? But beyond patients, I mean, I see it as a missed opportunity. We've been talking about just access to patients, but yeah, who's gonna supply? How's the supply chain gonna be in the long run? And are we gonna rely on importation alone? What are we gonna do with the resources we have? So small amount in the whole shebang of prohibition, just the medical, we're stuck with that. After the medical, we get people incarcerated because of possession, non-violent drug use, and then we have farmers. Of course, it's just stupid. I'm sorry for the word, because every time we see news of large plantation marijuana cultivation, they get uprooted, and then a couple of months after, there's going to be another, that enormous, massive amount of growth. You can't stop people from growing. And instead of like wasting so much resources, why can't we just utilize it? I mean, instead of always throwing them away and burning them. And because what's always being used as an excuse, as an scapegoat in the Philippines, is that we don't have research. but we're throwing away the things that we need to research on. I mean, I think, I'm not sure if it's because we're women, we're good in home economics, managing family. What's up with that? It's like, it's too simple, yet it's so complicated for them. Yeah, I'm sorry. Not, I don't mean to sound like we have all the answers, but it's just like we've been silenced for a lot of decades, and now we need to fight back. Girl power.
That's true. I mean, that was literally like on our premiere night. I think Hidayah got a question, and that was like literally someone was like, "So what have you done for this cause?" And like she literally just made a film, right? She just made a film, no big deal. But someone literally just asked Hidayah like, "So what have you done for the cause?" You know. So what about you, Hidayah? Like, how do you feel being a woman in this landscape as well, young one as well?
Yeah, it's a very unique experience. I think being female and being young as well, you are vulnerable to different things, and that state of vulnerability is also very much heightened as well. You feel exposed. I think from the film perspective, it was we had to deal with a lot of police because it was because Dr. G has this has a group of police officers who would accompany him to court and to hospital, wherever he needs to be for public attendings. And it's just ridiculous, the sight too. I mean, he's in a wheelchair and you have like 5 people standing around him. Like, what is he gonna do as well? So, and most of them are men. So I'm holding a camera. We tend to face a lot of aggressive men screaming, saying like, why do you have the camera? And like, we have to talk to them nicely because we can't aggravate the situation. We're from media. This is our job. Just let us do our job, and we won't do anything else. But even then, it is quite triggering as well. Some days when we have these run-ins with police, I'm still recovering from one as well.
Could you share with us what happened? Like, an experience of aggression?
Yeah, I mean, it was just that, like, it's general knowledge that you can't bring a camera or any recording device to court. As long as it's like turned off, it's fine. I just took out mine outside of court, and it wasn't even near the halls or anything. I was just checking my camera to film the day where it was one of Dr. G's court proceedings. It was an important day, and I wanted to record the ambience and everything. But just because someone saw me took it out outside the court, and then they saw me going in court, they pulled out about like 7 police officers to go inside the court to swarm me. And then they said we need to do a body check. Because I already showed them my camera too, it's already off. So they're like, oh, we thought it was on. Let me do a body check just to make sure. Which was, looking back at it, I was trying to be calm as well, and what's expected of a female member. You're supposed to just cooperate as much as you can. But even then, I walked away feeling that was some form of invasion. So that's from the film side. It's always difficult, especially when you're in the media. Your job is to film, or what else are you doing if you're not without these tools, right? Yeah, sorry. But in the activist side, it's also, you don't see a lot of females. Me and Joe come in. We were also pretty new to the cannabis conversation. And a lot of the people that we had to go to see were actually mostly men. And they were nice, but at the same time, there is this separation of degree where like, you can't entirely, because the gender experiences of using cannabis is completely different. So there is this inability to connect in that sense. I mean, yes, collaboration is meaningful, but at the same time, if your experiences are not matched, it's hard to fully get into that collaboration as well. And yeah, I think meeting Kimi and Kitty tonight has been really nice, because it's been a while since you saw a female face talking to women about this, because at the end of the day, something that I noticed about the drug policies and how inhumane it is, it mostly affects women and children. So it makes sense that we should be leading the conversation, because we've been affected the most. So I think that's all I have to say. I mean, yeah, Kimi and Kitty are
think that was really nice to wrap it up. But we're gonna, because we have some questions from the audience. I thought we are just gonna go through them a bit. We have this first question here from. Hold on, let me see. Okay, there's one from Giada Jelly. Hi, Giada. She says, what are the main challenges when you engage with the public about cannabis and its medical benefits? And maybe we can start off with Kimi and Kiri and then Hidayah.
Okay, challenges when we engage with public about cannabis and its medical benefits. Thanks to the reclassification of the United Nations, it's easier now as compared to like 5-6 years ago. But before, it's usually we are usually met by skepticism because of the notion that it's a drug, and you guys were just looking for excuse to advocate it. But then when we put out faces of like actual people who benefited from it, and then they're gonna say, oh yeah, but it's hard to have it legalized in the Philippines because it's just gonna be abused. And then again, we have to go again to another part of the conversation and say, well, we're advocating for patients to use it. So why are we talking about people abusing it? So it's always that loop, and then it always has to be. It's really the annoying recreational aspect that always gets in the way. It's always that, and I always believe that there's a thin line between prevention. Prevention is always the cure. We don't really have to be like in our deathbed asked to use cannabis as last resort. I mean, cannabis is now used for wellness products. So challenges in engaging the public about the benefits of medical cannabis, it's just usually skepticism of people. But now we have a lot of information out, and it actually, when they see like celebrities talking about it, it makes it feel like it's less dangerous when popular people talk about it. But when us advocates, it's like what we're saying is the same thing as what we're saying. So what makes them believable and what makes us less credible. So it's just that it's really about the misconception. It's challenging, and there's a lot of misconception to address.
Yeah, and Kiri, you recently came in from Canada Expo as well, from the US as well. So what do you think about this question?
I think let's focus to Thailand. I would say that because we moved on from like whether it's good or bad, it is now in the realms of this. You guys will get to this point eventually if legalization does occur. Is now in the myth area. Like we have like, cannabis can now do like, amazing, crazy things, or like, people just not understanding what it is and also trying to, pushing or selling things that are kind of way more than what it can actually delivers, or not even what it is at all. So it's kind of tend to be now more in terms of it's quite, for me, the most challenges that I would get is the older generation. And it's not about the benefit, but it's in terms about how to make sure that they understand what it is to be able to use it safely. And, like what products to not consume in certain ways, like things that are made for vaping is not supposed to be eaten, things that are made to be eaten is not supposed to be used for vaping, and they don't listen. And that's dangerous because they will listen to their friends who's also around their age but doesn't have any of the knowledge and are teaching things that are wrong or dangerous. So like that's the challenges that we have now, because people are quite eager. There's a high demand for it. As soon as the health ministry came out with, cannabis is a medicine, everyone wants that cannabis medicine because there is now, like, you know, so much benefits that's out there for it. So this is kind of I would say, like, it's very different challenge, but that will happen to kind of anyone that would go through the legalization process. Like, you know, California went through this, you know, Canada went through this, Amsterdam went through this. Like, you know, there has to be, it's like a rite of passage.
And then for you, Hidayah, you are running Kaji Bukan Keji as well locally here in Malaysia, and that this campaign is inspired by the film. So what do you think is the challenge here?
There are many challenges. I think, like, Kimmy and Kitty brought up, like, really similar experiences in the sense, like, you know, it's something that Dr. G was also punished with, was for being an advocate, being loud about the benefits of medical cannabis. And I think that's one of the challenges of, you know, possibly being persecuted for supporting the medical benefits of cannabis. And I think the second one is also, like, in Malaysia, the perception towards medical cannabis is very much divided. I think, you know, based on one of the reactions we got on our first screening night, was one of the audience typed in after seeing the film. She said that, I don't agree that that cannabis can be medicine, but I also disagree with the fact that a man should be punished for it. So she gets the, you know, the part where, like, this man should be punished for it, but she still doesn't understand about the medical benefits of cannabis. And that's fair, because most likely, like, they come from a group where, you know, in schools they're taught that cannabis is dangerous, it can kill you. So they're still in that mentality as well, which is nobody's fault, really. That all goes back to how we're taught as kids. So bridging that gap between these people who believe in death penalty but, you know, wants to advocate for medical cannabis, and then there's the people who think medical cannabis is wrong but death penalty is correct. It's hard. I think that's the biggest challenge so far with our campaign, is to find a middle ground in which everyone can engage with, because most of them really don't care, but inactivating them is difficult in that sense. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to add something. I just realized it now, that sometimes when you advocate for something, they're gonna ask you, why do you know that? Have you used it? So yeah. So when we
Catch 22 right there.
I know, right? When we filed our candidacy to run as a political party, so we were asked, how long have we been using cannabis? Which is really, it was really unnecessary. But sometimes you have to give in and give them a medicine of their own choice. You have to say that, well, you can be an animal rights advocate, but you're not an animal, right? You can support the fight against breast cancer and put on pink ribbons. You don't have to have breast cancer to do that. So really, it's just that, you know, people are just trying, they're just trying to play smart with you. What does it have to do if a person uses it or not when they're advocating it? I mean, can they just not listen to the benefits? Why does it have to do with why do they have to ask if we're using it or not when we're talking about the benefits, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the constant fear.
Yeah.
But with that one, I've gone to a point where I now tell them exactly that I use. I kind of, like, I told my husband already about you know, that I'm going all the way through for, like, you know, use is the least amount of penalty, but at the same time, that one I'm willing to fight for it. So if they get me, fuck. But hey,
touch wood. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
where my floor's wood. We're good.
We're good. There's wood here, and yeah, I mean, we constantly have to skirt around that topic as well. Over here, like, we're gonna leave it to the audience to guess whether we consume or not, and it shouldn't even matter in the first place, right? What we're doing with it. Even I think it's better.
Adults.
Yeah, we're adults.
It's kind of like, oh, do you have sex? Doesn't matter.
Do I have permission from my parents? Should we ask?
Gosh.
You know, it's the same thing. Like you're not gonna go around asking people, "Do you have sex?" Same thing.
The real catch-22. Yeah, it's the same as how like they are asking us to send in research materials, but we can't even have access to cannabis in the first place to submit research materials into Parliament. So it's kind of like this catch-22, and us catching these loopholes. But we have another question actually from Nick Shaw. He asked, are the policies in Thailand and the Philippines influenced by external economics? And I'm wondering if this is meant in a way that like
investment.
Like
I think you should answer that.
Like I'm assuming this the viewer is asking in terms of like comparison with the West as well.
Okay, so
yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
External economics, my understanding is probably the market and the investment that may come into the country, or things going out. So that's kind of my guess. So my take on that is no, not usually. They may use it as a model to look at, but especially for Thailand, it's very moral related base. It's and it just happened to be, like I said, we were lucky that the politician decided that cannabis was a thing that he should run for. So that was one of the stumble that I actually think it's quite okay at the end of the day, even though but even though our politics are quite horrible and bad, but it made things move a little bit more, and it brought into view. Here's the weird thing. Don't take all my words for it, but a lot of people who are at play right now here in Thailand regarding to cannabis are quite users or quite people who know and understand the plants. So it was good to for this to happen, and then these people kind of popped up and showed up. You can understand that, like, if we go related back to use, everyone's kind of hidden and hiding and waiting for that time to come out. But in terms of policies here in Thailand, especially drug-related policies, it's not really external economics. It's kind of more internal, even though they wish for, to be able to export. A lot of times, especially right now, they're not really even taking in the market into consideration. Like, the price of cannabis right now here in Thailand, the legal one that they are buying, say, farm to, business, like a B2B, is around like 45,000 baht per kilo. And it's like, quality is meh. It's, because we're not quite used to be able to produce what the market actually able to produce. While at the same time, you can get the same quality that is like, $500 or $1,000, not even $500 or less in the US. So like if they take in market into consideration, there's not really that much investment coming in either. A lot of people in Thailand was actually scared of, foreign takeovers and whatnot, but the foreign companies actually aren't stupid. So like they know and they realize that, policies are not there yet. They're not going to be here, fighting because they're not here. They can still continue to do their business and make money without having to waste any money into this country where policy hasn't been ironed out. And also they're only looking at us as a market. We're not really, the production center that we wish we were. And until Thailand also realized that we can't produce what they can at a reasonable price, and until we find a way to produce our own product and then market that out, we're not going to be that successful within the cannabis industry. So yeah.
I think I
What
can say the same. I don't think we are influenced by. I don't think they're looking into economics already.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're still stuck with the moral issues of whether to have it legalized or not. But it's kind of stupid because post COVID recovery would be needing a lot of money, and we're looking at an industry. It's an untapped potential, and the only thing that's stopping them is like, what if it can lead to addiction? I mean, why does it always have to lead to that conclusion? Is what's going to happen to our youth? I mean, yeah. So to answer that, no, we're not at the economics level yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's the same in Malaysia, right? Ayahku, you attest to that as well. Like, we're nowhere near talking about money or investments yet, or are we close?
No, I mean
Oh.
there's news that there's a couple of private companies. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that, but you could check it out. Like if anyone does, but there are some private companies in Malaysia already who are investing in hemp, and there is announcements in Parliament right now about the review for the access to cannabis as medicine. But even then, that's a lot of bureaucracy stress to already put on patients who are already struggling with their disease, and you're just pushing paperwork on them. And that's the best answer you've got. Oh, yeah. Love this. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, like they're pushing it as an economic plant thing here in Thailand, but then again, like most of the plants that the government tend to push, like rice and sugarcane and rubber and corn, they all kind of fail miserably, all of their program. But yeah.
Well, failed policies and also a lot of loopholes aside, what are your plans, you guys, for the future? And maybe you can start with Kimi and Kitty, and then we end with Daya. And like, what are your plans for the future, and how are we gonna shake things up here in the scene?
Okay, so our target really is to win the election, but we're not yet given the assurance that we can run. So there's still that. But regardless, if we are not granted the permission to run for next year's election, at least people know that, hey, we are a sector now. We're not just a bunch of we're not just a loose organization. We now know our strength. That there's many of us, and there's a lot more of us in hiding. They're just waiting for the right moment to come out, and I think how to make them come out is to show them that, hey, it's not just about medical, it's not just about recreational, it's not just about industrial, but it's a whole, it's another industry. And like I said earlier, it's an untapped potential. So we shouldn't waste time arguing whether to have it legalized or not. We shouldn't waste time whether to give it only to patients as last resort, or we should not fight whether to put people in jail just for possessing a small amount. So the challenge is to continue doing what we're doing and build alliance again. And like us in Southeast Asia, if they see us that we are like, hey, you can't fool us anymore. We've bonded with our sisters and brothers from nearby regions, and we're not taking things sitting down anymore. I mean, we've been pushed away. We're not really taken seriously. But I think if they see that, oh, hey, these people are not stepping down, they're not backing out. We're here to stay unless they change things. And even if it gets legalized, I think that's actually more work for us, because we have to make sure that what we fought for is really going to serve the people and not just some corporations or just a few people.
Yeah. What about you, Kitty? What's your plans for the future?
We're watching
have
you.
a feeling.
We're watching you in Thailand. We Filipinos are watching you.
I have a feeling that for 5 years, the next 5 years, it will pretty much be SSDD, which is same shit, different day. Doing this thing all over again, educating. But I find that I've been quite good now with getting my, elevator, not a pitch, but like, a compact amount of cannabis information that you are able to say within an elevator ride. I swear I'm getting good at that because I do it every day, and it's always the same stuff, the same questions. And do I get sick of it? Yeah, there'll be days when I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? And then there'll be days where it's like, oh, like, where like there'll be days when it's the little things, such as like you talk to a mom so that she understand her son, because all it is like, the kid used cannabis and there's no other problems. The kid just used cannabis. So, being able to, be that little thing that helps out, and at the same time also probably doing things a bit more, even more in the background. It seems like the longer you're in this space, the more like into the background you go. And then, and my key things and the things that I seem to do best is influencing people and, inseminating those, little tickers and thoughts. And because we need to realize that all of this takes time. As much as if we start today, it will still take like times further down the road for, any of that to even become fruitful. So yeah, I'm here doing the same thing. I'm here for support. I'm here for information. I'm here for whatever knowledge, whatever question you guys have. I'm quite open to answer. Everyone, find me online. It's not that hard. That name, Google it. And if you have questions, ask away. And I will try to, answer as much as I can. And if I don't, it's not my fault. Half the time it's Mark Zuckerberg, like kind of, making me all hidden and stuff.
And what about you, Hidayah? What are your plans for the future as well in your advocacy work? And filming as well, of course.
Yes. So the fight is still on. Dr. G is still in prison, and we're still waiting for the decision to be made. And his court proceedings have been delayed. It's almost been 4 years now, so we're on standby for anything that happens to Dr. G. A lot of people will be held. We will hold a lot of people accountable if anything happens to Dr. G. And that is through the tool of filming. So also, in the long run, we are also in the makings of making a film about the personal experience of families who had to witness the destruction under 39B. Because to a lot of people, 39B is just 2 letters and 1 word. No, 2 letters. It's 2 numbers and 1 word. Sorry, yes. So, but they don't see the actual, devastation that's happened under it. So, in the next round of film, it'll be turning the camera to me, because I've also personally experienced losing a dad to incarceration under the drug policies in Malaysia. So he will be into that and also comparing to how much Malaysia has changed and how much it hasn't. So those are our plans. And Kimmy has my vote, and I'll forever be looking up to Kitty. So yeah.
We're gonna have a tour next time to the Philippines and Thailand as well, and also Malaysia. We're gonna do an all-girl tour. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear everyone putting out good work, and hopefully we can only be hopeful of what's gonna happen in the future. And as long as we keep putting our foot forward, I hope that all of us regionally, we will achieve something soon. But thank you so much, guys, for tonight. It's been a great event to wrap off our campaign for this year as well, and to meet 2 new allies, Kimmy and Kitty, in the region. We're very lucky and thankful for you guys to be here as well.
Thank you so much. Really a pleasure, and it's always an opportunity to bond, because this is something that we don't we don't really intend on meeting each other, but it kind of brings us together, whether we like it or not. And then it becomes like a long-term relationship because we have something in common that we're so passionate about. And yeah, let's look out for each other, and let's hope that we don't make the same mistakes of what other countries did. Yeah, so I just want to say that because, like what Kitty said, where it's still not legalized, it's actually an opportunity for us to learn, and it's really our fault if at the time we legalize it and we're going to repeat the same mistakes. I mean, duh, we just lost that amount of time not learning. So yeah, always keep moving forward. And thank you again.
Always changing and learning.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Do
you,
you guys have any
guys.
last word for the audience? Any last tip? Or also like check in the chat box where we will be sharing the links to Kimmy and Kitty's pages and to our campaign website as well. But yeah, any final words from you guys for the night?
Thank you for having me. And yeah, it's like I really enjoyed this. It's great to see like all the panels being all girls. It's usually the other way around, and I'll be like the only one kind of hidden in the corner. But I can't wait for COVID to kind of, be a thing of the past, or something that is manageable, that our borders start opening up. Would love to host you guys. Would like to have the expo back up again, because I definitely need Kimmy to come back and, update us about how the policy is going over that way. And we need to, keep all of this dynamic going. One other thing about cannabis and fighting and advocating is don't ever let the wave stop. You can't. You just need to keep on going. Like, it has to be constant, and it kind of had to start chipping away at people. One day they will ask that question of why, and when that one day comes, just be ready to answer it.
The elevator pitch, it's right there.
Oh yeah.
Hidayah, Kimmy, any last words as well for the audience?
Well, yeah, I think I pretty much talked a lot already. But yeah, the message I think that I want to leave is that the more we get together, it's really us bonding and showing how many we are, because people would always assume that, oh, you're just the same bunch of people still doing the same thing, SSDD. Oh yeah, what did you say again, Kitty? What was that?
Same shit, different day.
SSDD, same shit, different day. Yeah, so it's always like that. But when they see that there are more of us, more diverse people, we have professionals speaking up as well. So we have to normalize and humanize the use of not just cannabis but drugs, because we're consenting adults. And I think that this is our body. And like what Kitty said earlier, I really like her explanation that sex, drugs, not rock and roll, and gambling are all part of human nature. And there's no way to stop that. We can only manage it. So yeah, what we can do is we always keep moving forward and to spark hope and let it ripple.
Word.
Hell yeah.
About you, Hidayah, closing words for the night.
No, I just want to add on to Kimmy's well-worded closing message. It's really, it can happen to anyone, and I think like that's the reason why we named the film Ayahku Dr. G, or in English translation, My Father Dr. G. So the chasm between prisoner and drug user and a father is not really far. So it can affect anyone, and it can affect you. So it can happen to anyone. And I think, in the face of all this suffering, so much suffering, the beautiful thing that come out of it was, this community of people who lived through very difficult experiences and coming together to shine a light on, a better future. I'm getting all sappy, but yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see the community grow and to know more people too from this. Yeah.
Well, thank you all to our audience for tuning in tonight as well. If you guys are interested to follow Kimi, Kitty, and also Hidayah in their work, please feel free to follow them on the links provided in the chat. And I guess we'll call it a day for today, but the fight goes on. And yeah, can't wait to see each other in person after COVID as well, you know?
Yes, please. Let's do that.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so
It's,
much. Thank you.
like travel is needed.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you guys for coming in. And yeah, stay tuned for more events at Constellations, and have a good night.
Bye.
Take care.